This is Senate Judiciary. Senate Judiciary, the 13th of January. And we're taking up the bill on aggregate value of stolen property in certain crimes. And we did hear testimony yesterday about this bill, and we're following up today. And so we have a number of witnesses. Our first one is Aaron Siegrist, President, Vermont Retail and Grocers Association.
Good morning.
Oh, there you are. Good morning.
Yes.
Nice to
Good
see
morning.
you.
Nice to see you all. Thank you for having me. Welcome back. I'm sorry we
Thank
can't
you.
be in person, but nice to
I
see
am
you.
too. Say hi to Neil for us,
I certainly
especially
will.
for those of us down here in Bennington County.
I will, for sure. So thank you for having me. For the record, I am Erin Siegrist, President of the Vermont Retail and Grocers Association. I would first like to take a quick moment to thank Senator Baruth for introducing this bill and starting the conversation about retail theft in Vermont. As the Defender General stated yesterday, increased penalties do not deter crime, and the only thing that deters crime is getting caught. And I think we can all certainly agree with that statement. We can also agree that it's clearly a much larger issue than we can imagine. And unfortunately, Vermont is experiencing a significant impact, just like the rest of the states. As you all heard yesterday, there are two major types of retail theft that retailers are experiencing. Both were again touched on yesterday: organized retail crime and also theft to feed an addiction. Both types of crime, they require a multi-pronged effort with several stakeholders. Unfortunately, there's no quick fix. In my conversations with members and retailers across the state, more than 90% of retailers have reported they've experienced theft in the last year. Independent retailers are reporting that theft fluctuates between 3 and 9% of sales each year. And this year, end of 2021 to 2022, we're seeing theft on the higher end of that spectrum. Retailers are also reporting that shoplifters have become bolder than ever, and they're well aware that there is little to no consequence for getting caught. Small retailers are reporting that they've stopped reporting most petty larceny thefts because they know that nothing will come of it due to staffing shortages within law enforcement, as well as some lack of action by some states' attorneys. I'm sure that we can have a larger conversation about, the impacts of staffing shortages, not just in retail and hospitality, but again, police and law enforcement. No industry has been left untouched. I will share with you, country store members and small retailers have reported several different experiences. One small country store here in central Vermont reported that 2 young employees, one was actually in training, were held up at a counter. Someone brought up beer, tobacco, and lottery, and they also stole cash. They threatened them with a gun. That person left with about $800 in merchandise. The person was caught, but they were released on bail, and the retailer was never made whole. One retailer reported that they had to replace a front window twice within 1 week because whether it was one person or two, they experienced 2 break-ins. They stole more than $1,000 each time. The cost to fix that window was more than $1,200 each time as well. They were again never made whole. The same store has reported that they caught someone stealing a couple of times a month. Most often, it was jewelry, sunglasses, gloves, and other apparel, sometimes medicine, probably cold medicine and alcohol. But again, they don't expect their employees to stop these thieves. Based on experience, they want to make sure that their staff is safe. So they strongly encourage them to steer clear. If the business owner is there, many have reported that they will approach shoplifters, but again, they don't want to put staff in harm's way. I have a store in Bennington County that reported that their most recent break-in amounted to more than $2,000 in cash and merchandise, and also experienced more than $1,500 in structural damage. They were never made whole. Many of the reports that I've received, they've never been made whole. Grocery stores, they report that cases continue to increase. Grocers have experienced several incidences where customers will fill up a grocery cart, whether it's full of meat or if it's a mix of protein and fruits and vegetables, and the person will push that cart out the door and walk free with more than $1,000, $2,000 worth of products. Much of this product will be moved out of state or across the Canadian border. Some of that product will be sold online. Some of it will be sold, at a market on the street. But it's been very difficult to understand where that product is going recently because of the staffing shortages within law enforcement. One drugstore chain has reported a nearly 30% increase in theft since the pandemic began. And so those are some of the instances. I could probably talk for hours on the several issues that retailers are facing, the several incidences that retailers are facing. I did share with the committee and committee staff a piece of legislation that has been introduced in at least 22 other states. Retailers have worked with Congress to introduce this legislation that would address some of the organized retail crime happening across the country. Many of you know the name Senator Dick Durbin. He introduced the Integrity, Notification, and Fairness in Online Retail Marketplaces Act, or the INFORM Act. Unfortunately, that bill hasn't moved out of committee in Congress, but as I shared, it's been introduced in 22 states already. And so I would ask the committee to spend some time considering including this language or amending S-180 with that language. Essentially, the bill requires 6 basic pieces of information that any legitimate brick and mortar store would already provide in an online retail marketplace. We feel that it's one part of the solution. Unfortunately, as I shared before, there's no quick fix, but it's one part of the solution in addressing organized retail crime. There are several other reasons we feel that we should move forward with introducing this language. It includes specific carve-outs for hobbyists or the casual seller. It seeks to provide a level playing field of information provided by sellers. Several online marketplaces have already supported language similar to this. So this is to protect retailers, but it's also an effort to stop some of those professional retail thieves that are stealing product that they then in turn turn around and sell online for significantly lower prices than what a retailer can even purchase it at. I'm happy to talk a little more about the INFORM Act. I'm happy to take questions, but I do want to give others an opportunity to talk about their experience.
As far as the INFORM Act, I think we'll have a discussion about that when we mark up the bill. I'm hopeful to get this bill out of here. We're in a very expedited year, and I'm not sure that that's not something that should be looked at by the Committee on Economic Development. I just scanned the bill when I came back from the hospital, and so I haven't had a chance to really review it. But we can talk about that next week when we get to the markup of the bill. And Peggy will let you know when that is.
Great, thank you.
I don't know what day yet because still in the midst of putting the agenda together. I'm also interested though in one statement you made about the grocery stores. That appears to be organized, more than one person.
That's our understanding, is that is part of an organized effort. One person can't eat an entire grocery cart's worth of, and I mean, when I say an entire grocery cart, it's not just, 15 pieces of meat. It's literally a heaping grocery cart with meat, and they throw it in the back of their trunk and speed off, and my understanding with having conversations with a handful of law enforcement professionals, some of that meat has been found across state lines.
And other items are stolen and then appear on the internet for resale. But it's hard to prove that it was your item. For
Yes.
example, if somebody takes a TV out of a client store, to prove that that was your TV that's being offered on eBay.
Right. It's very difficult to track every specific item, but when you see, an entire grocery cart, if you see 400 pounds of meat coming out of one location, or you see 25 TVs, or, I've seen deodorant, whether it's, 15 pieces of deodorant or 30 pieces of soap. It's amazing what they'll take off of the shelves, but if you can take anything off the shelf and turn it around and sell it for $1 or $5, it's more money
right.
than.
Okay. Senator Baruth.
I just wanted to second what the chair said about economic development and the act that you're trying to move out of committee in the federal space, but seeking to add it to this bill. Having been on economic development, I know that whenever you do an online bill, it becomes immediately controversial, and very deep-pocketed interests start showing up in the committee room. So I think what we have in S180 right now is relatively straightforward, whether people agree with what it's trying to do or not. I think if we tried to add that language, we would definitely wind up pushing it past this year and the bill would die. So I definitely think what you're talking about in that language needs attention, but probably the longer process and the proper process is economic development.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Any other?
just real quick to follow up with that, Senator Baruth, I do appreciate the committee's effort with S180, and certainly if this is a baby step forward, we support it 100%. But we do want to have that greater conversation about Inform and how we can help retailers across the state.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Aaron? Aaron, good to see you, even if it's remote.
Nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Our next witness is Kelly Devine, the Burlington Business Association.
Is my mic enabled? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great.
You sound great.
Thank you. Thank you also to Senator Baruth for introducing this important piece of legislation. We are fighting a real uphill battle in Burlington and in Chittenden County. And I want to thank my colleague, Erin, for putting a fine point on the fact that this is definitely a statewide issue. Brought a couple of Burlington business owners with me today. I will speak when I'm done, who can really put a fine point on and share some data about the real impacts of the crime that's going on in Burlington, the sort of unchecked retail theft that's going on. And Erin is 100% correct that the acts are brazen. People will walk into a store. I know City Market has reported that. And even if they're stopped by loss prevention, because we are lucky for some of our Burlington businesses to be able to afford loss prevention staff, the thief will say, I know there's nothing you can do to me. There's no teeth. So I'm just going to walk right on out. So sometimes these people get quite confrontational when they are approached in a store. We have a couple of key concerns when it comes to Burlington. And like I said, my colleagues will, I think, paint a picture of the fact that organized retail theft is happening every single day in Burlington. You may have heard of LL Bean moving out of Burlington. In its first year, LL Bean had the highest theft rate of any LL Bean store in the United States. I understand that the Kinney drug in Shelburne has the highest theft rate of any Kinney drug in the United States. And then mostly our local businesses will tell you a little bit about what they're experiencing. Some of the, could you hold on? My son decided to sing a song just about that.
Oh,
So anyway, I think a couple of key things, and to echo what Erin mentioned, in our stores downtown, the staff working in retail, especially our smaller stores, feel targeted and very threatened by these thefts. We have women who will walk into a small boutique with a couple of large duffel bags, and they will go into the dressing room, fill them out, and then fill them up and blatantly walk out. And the store staff feel very afraid to try to confront these folks because, as I said, there's been, people will act up. These are local retailers we're talking about in Burlington, and we are already up against a variety of challenges this last couple of years between the pandemic, increased presence of people with issues related to mental health disorders and substance use disorder in our downtown, and then you add to it this situation with retail theft and organized retail theft. And in addition, we saw again this year, online sales increase dramatically. And so, to keep our retail core going, we need to help them in any way we can. I'll remind the committee that roughly 40 cents of every dollar spent locally stays in the communities. These are good jobs for college students and good small businesses that we need to help. I think there's a very, very clear evidence that the organized retail theft that's going on in Burlington is directly tied to people trying to figure out ways to get money to support substance use disorder habits. And some of these folks also that we're finding out are involved have needs that need to be addressed around mental health. You probably have heard that, in Chittenden County right now, we have no inpatient beds for substance use disorder. Our mental health resources are stretched extremely thin. Our police force has been stretched extremely thin. So any kind of action that would directly address the fact that organized retail theft is happening and that we need to take some action on it would be appreciated. It is absolutely true that there is no perception that there's no consequences for these acts. And, I have to wonder for people who are put in a situation where they're told to get X number of certain jackets or X number of certain boots, or, pick up whatever you can get and run out the store with it. They're victims too of a system that is abusing them and maybe their illness to try to benefit somebody else's pocketbook. We see people grab large quantities of materials and go to waiting cars. Burlington's got a wide street network. Some people just run away. I witnessed right out in front of my own building a man moving about 18 to 25 large bottles of perfume and personal care goods from one bag to another duffel bag right in front of me. I happened to be standing there trying to assist another person who had a mental health issue going on, and he just moved this product right in front of me, put it over his shoulder, and just walked away. So we really do need some action on the state level to at least send the message that we know organized retail theft is happening in Vermont, and we want to do something about it. We've even heard from some folks in law enforcement that organized groups will come from Plattsburgh to Burlington to do this type of thing because they know that it's permissive. Now, there's a running joke that was going around this summer saying people from out of state were saying go to Vermont on vacation, come home on probation. So anything that we can do to try to strengthen this, and then hopefully we'll be able to put some pressure on our state's attorney's office to prosecute some of these things would be greatly appreciated. I want to also mention that I noticed S180 retains the limit of $900, and I know that the House has moved to increase that limit. And the folks that are going to follow me will tell you that when you set a limit, it's just a bar, and everybody that does this organized retail theft knows about the bar, and they're pretty well informed about how to stay just under it when they commit these thefts. Right now, somebody in Burlington can go and steal $899 from Outdoor Gear Exchange, and then $899 from a women's boutique, and maybe they go to Patagonia and do another $899. And they know that they can do that all day, and it'll never rise to a felony offense. So when you set a limit like that, just remember that they know, and if you can't aggregate these thefts, then people can, run through town unabashed and commit. We do have incidents where people will commit multiple retail thefts in a week or even in a day. So that's what we're seeing in Burlington. And I think this legislation does go some of the ways to help us address it. And I think also it's important that it sends a message. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there questions for Kelly? Yeah, I guess my first question is, have the retailers in Burlington have conversations with the mayor and his and police about enforcement, and have they had conversations with the state's attorney?
We have a weekly meeting that's run by the head of the Church Street Marketplace. It's actually going on right now, so those of us on the call are missing it. It's called the Safety and Security Meeting. We meet every week and talk with a representative from the mayor's office about these issues. We also have the Howard Street Outreach Team on the call and several of the folks from loss prevention. We, before the pandemic, we partnered with folks from other police departments around Chittenden County and had probably a series of 10 to 15 meetings with the state's attorney's office about this issue, and found that we weren't really getting any progress in terms of changing the approach. And we also have had meetings with judges to try to talk to them about the issue. We probably need to revisit those strategies at this point, and have talked recently about doing just that.
Yeah, good. Because fortunately, in Vermont, there's a lot of geographic justice. And so what happens in Bennington County may be very different from what happens in Chittenden County, in terms particularly of what I'll classify as low-level crime, retail theft, those types of things. And it frequently takes meetings and encouragement to deal with this. And I'm a firm believer, quite frankly, that if you take care of the little things, the big things don't get you. And I think sometimes we ignore, and I'm not suggesting throwing everybody in jail is involved in retail theft, by the way. But sometimes if we ignore that and don't deal with it, then it gets into bigger and better things in terms of criminal activity. So I think it's important to deal with small things.
Could I speak to that, Senator Sears?
Sure.
So we hear often, and I totally agree with you that the way that law, that the way that people are prosecuted varies by county, and that people have to go to the ballot box and vote how they want to see that that handled. I hear a lot about offering treatment for either substance use or mental health to people who are subject to recidivism, or rather than put them into the corrections system. And I think there is validity in that approach. Part of the problem we have in Burlington is the mental health and substance use resources are so incredibly constrained right now that we're seeing people turn style through the judicial system. We have a restorative justice program, and we have to have some conversations with the folks there, but during the pandemic, and Erin talked about whether businesses were made whole. We saw a lot of, times where restorative justice amounted to the perpetrator sending an email to the business. And it's like, we don't, I need to explore to see some evidence that especially that type of restorative justice is working. Folks on the call from the retailers will tell you about how, we know who the people are who are repeatedly stealing and involved in organized retail theft, and we see them come back again and again and again to downtown stores.
Any other questions for Kelly? Thank you, Kelly. Our next witness is Mark Sherman, Outdoor Gear Exchange. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking the time to pursue this legislation and to hear from us. Outdoor Gear Exchange has been downtown in Burlington since 1995 when I started it in an 800 square foot space just below the Flynn Theater on Main Street. And we've been committed to being downtown through 4 moves now, including purchasing our building right now. In the meantime, businesses like Old Navy previously to us in our space and LL Bean just to our west have and are leaving downtown due in part to issues with shoplifting and safety for their staff. The situation is worsening. It's becoming more and more frustrating to our entire staff, and it's putting them at greater risk over time. It's not just a problem for Outdoor Gear Exchange, but it's a problem for all businesses in Vermont and ultimately for Vermont's long-term economic strength. I have a couple of sort of points to touch on at the top level. We've seen increases annually in losses since 2017 from $35,000 at retail in 2017 to over $200,000 in 2021. That's double what the number in 2020 and 2019 was. We need to sell $500,000 in product just to break even on the loss that we've experienced in 2021 alone. We also spend about $250,000 a year in loss prevention efforts, including staffing and technology. This means that we need to sell over $1.2 million in product just to cover the cost of loss and loss prevention. That's $1.2 million. That is almost 10% of the business that we do out of our retail store in Burlington. John, I see you writing that down. I'm happy to share those numbers. And that's the profit from that could fund 10 to 12 jobs that we could hire people for. The loss is unfortunate. It's a cost of doing business in retail, but at close to 10% of our top line being dedicated to covering this cost, it's unsustainable in our effort to provide livable wages, long-term full-time employment, and see continued growth in our contribution to the local economy and the tax base. This is also a health and safety risk to my staff who are uncomfortable because the people who are stealing from us are also out on the street at night and in the mornings when we're going back and forth from the bank. I've had one employee, a woman who I think is 24, 25, who's interested in getting involved in our loss prevention team. And her first question was, do we ever have threats to our staff outside of work for work that they're doing on loss prevention with this population? This means that this situation is impacting people's willingness to work, their interest in getting involved and seeing their career growth, and their personal safety in Burlington. It's not good. To add insult to injury, and I think few people are aware of this, perhaps this group is, the current sales tax code has us as a business paying sales tax on the product stolen from us since we bought it at wholesale with no tax and didn't sell it as planned and tax it. So that means if someone steals a pair of skis from me that maybe they sell for $1,000 and we paid $600 for it, we have to pay sales tax on that $600 because it was stolen. That's, in my opinion, simply unacceptable, since I believe it's government's responsibility to help us mitigate these losses in some way, and that seems like an easy one to do. Sam Brady, who manages our loss prevention team, is going to speak next on some of the details around the nature of our offenders, the frequency of those offenses, and the increase in that offense over time, as well as the risks that his team experiences with this population and how that's impacting our day-to-day work. I want to be clear, the numbers that I've stated do not include the time that we spend putting hard tags on and removing hard tags off every product in the store. That's not an inconsequential amount of labor. If it takes 10 seconds per product, think that we probably go through tens of thousands of products a year. Those all need to be handled in regards to loss prevention. Thank you for taking the time to hear this and consider it, and for your efforts in trying to make things better in Burlington and Vermont. And we're all in this together, and we all want to make this work. And the joking comments that Kelly just reflected, we really don't want to be looked at that way by the criminal organizations. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I think I would like to hear from Sam first, and I think there may be some questions. One of my questions is, how organized is this shoplifting or stealing? And are you easily able to prove that that's an organized group? You know, you know that from your, I don't know, from your cameras and other activity that you do with loss prevention. I'm particularly interested in that.
I think Sam will be able to speak to that. And obviously, when we refer to organized crime, I don't know if we're talking about the typical terms of organized crime around big crime syndicates, but we are talking about groups of people who are organized to do what they're doing. It's not incidental theft. It's not people with a kleptomania problem or just a desire to have some fun. In fact, I've been asked specifically whether the high school being down the block has impacted us. And to be honest, when we first learned that they were moving in, there was some concern that with increased teenagers in the area, getting out of school at 3:30 or whenever school lets out, that we might see a problem. We have absolutely not seen that problem. This is all the people who are on the street and are looking to fill their substance abuse needs or other issues that they have. And while I have lots of empathy for them and for their treatment, I have concern over the fact that I could be hiring 12 or 15 more people with the money I'm spending preventing loss.
Thank you. Sam Brady is the next witness. Already been introduced by Mr. Sherman, so fire away, Sam.
Hello, thank you for having me here to hear what I have to say. So to kind of immediately answer the question, in the past year alone, I have a list of 36 repeat offenders that have stolen repetitively from Outdoor Gear Exchange alone. Organized retail crime, I think, has been present in Burlington since I started working 4 years ago on loss prevention at Outdoor Gear Exchange. But it's definitely gotten substantially worse. I think 4 years ago, our list was 8 people that we knew repetitively stole. It was usually low to a moderate amount of product once every few months and distributed then at the bus station or at the church on North Winooski Avenue. This year, though, starting on September 26th, for the really big ones that we had, a man named Israel Rentis walked out of our store with over $900 worth of product. He was charged with a misdemeanor, even though it was a felony amount of product to steal. And when I called and asked the state's attorney's office why that was, they told me they were hesitant of charging people with felonies. Over the next 3 months, we've had 20, after that, we had 20 smash and grabs, each totaling between $500 and $1,500. They'd started sending people in to look around and scope out what should be taken and where we had re-merchandised our product, because we do move our product around a lot. And then later that day, they would send people in to grab armfuls of clothes and walk out to a getaway car, which we have never seen before. A few of those specific smash and grabs for thefts over 900, the people doing it have been identified and none of them have been charged with a felony. This continued until early December, when we posted a door person from our loss prevention team that would literally wrestle the product out of people's hands as they left, and the smash and grabs started to decline. In the past year, I've seen people arrested for stealing from us, either because they had a previous warrant or when they were confronted by police, they became violent, and be released the same day to come and then steal from us again. I've been laughed at while calling the police on someone who was stealing because they know that their response times are significantly reduced from what they were just 2 years ago. I've been with police who have stopped someone who has stolen from us, who I watched steal concealed product. I could tell them exactly what it was, where it was, and how much it was worth, but then have to watch that person walk away with the product because I hadn't saved the footage yet, which was saved not an hour after the fact. I have a list of 4 people who have actually been here for a while, but are a lot more active than they used to be. Who have stolen thousands and thousands of dollars of product from us over just the last year, and over the last 4 years, I couldn't even tell you how much. We rarely get compensated for the loss. If we do, it's never the full amount, even with a positive ID and a police report. And in the past 6 months, people have been getting way more violent than they used to be. Threats of violence happen during almost every incident, even if there is no physical altercation or us trying to take product from them. We don't reach in people's bags or take it if they're wearing it, but we will grab it out of their hands if they have it in their hands. Employees have been assaulted a few times, including myself. And it's gotten to the point where staff are afraid of retribution and retaliation from people outside of the shop when they're not working. I myself, when it's dark out and I'm walking back to my car, certainly look over my shoulder frequently. Thank you for your time. That's all I had. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions for Sam? Sam, that's very helpful. I'm curious about that interaction you had with the police officer who wouldn't make an arrest because you hadn't saved the footage yet, but you could have the footage in an hour. It doesn't make sense.
So from what the officer told me, they had called into the state's attorney's office and they were not allowed to hold that person while I went to get the footage. They had to let them go. That's what they were told.
One would think they could at least cite them.
Senator Sears?
Yeah.
My understanding of that particular issue was that the state's attorney's office had judged it as a violation of the person's privacy to search their bag. We also have the same issue with, which is unrelated to, open container, that if people, are drinking, you can pour out the one beer they have in their hand, but then if there's others in their bag, you're not allowed to touch it. So there seems to be an issue related to if people conceal the items, as Sam said. State's attorney's office is telling us that we're not allowed to go into their personal belongings to search for stolen goods. Sam, could you share with the committee how many cameras you currently have active at Outdoor Gear Exchange?
A few of them have actually just been taken down during some reorganizing that we're doing, but it's somewhere around 120.
Thank you.
Peggy, could you just, I see Eric's not with us, who's our legislative counsel, but I'd like some clarification on that. So maybe he could just check that out.
Sure. I know he's not.
Email to Eric.
Yes, can you repeat the question? I know he's not available.
The question is, somebody saw somebody and you have footage of it, of them stealing an item from your store.
Yep.
And then you're not allowed to go into their bag in order to take your item back or whatever. Have the police come and do it. It doesn't, you can't, I understand you can't search the bag while they're still in the store because they might then pay for it. We don't know that they're going to take it, even though you're pretty sure they will. But once they're outside the door and you've got video evidence and your own eyewitness that it's your item in their bag, the idea that you can't look into that bag, I don't understand that.
Okay.
So
I'll email
that's
him.
my specific question for Eric.
Yep.
Senator Baruth.
I'm wondering, in light of this testimony, if we shouldn't ask the Chittenden County State's Attorney to testify, because it seems like a lot of these come down to discretionary calls on the part of that office. And in the scenario you just lay out, I wouldn't understand why you wouldn't prosecute. But, Sarah St. George has been, I would say, reluctant to prosecute a number of things that were traditionally prosecuted. So it would be interesting to hear the philosophy there.
I think we heard from Evan Meenan, but I'd like some clarification on the specific issue. Whether you're in Bennington or Chittenden County or wherever you are, somebody just stole something from your store. You have video proof. You've actually witnessed the theft. And then it's against the law to try to retrieve your item. Doesn't make sense. So I'd like some clarification on that. Maybe we should ask Evan Meenan and Sarah George if they want to testify on it. I mean, it may be good reason why I don't understand that. Anyway, Sam, thank you. Are there other questions for Sam? Very clear. You have a problem. John George is our next witness. John George Wheeler.
Hi there. Yep, my name is John George Wheeler. Thank you all for inviting me and Senator Baruth for introducing S-180. Speaking certainly as a proud business community member, Burlington resident, and co-owner of the Ski Rack family, which is inclusive of Patagonia Burlington on College Street and Vermont Trailer out in Waterbury Center. But especially here in representation of my team and staff, a major concern is we're seeing unprecedented theft. We've been around 53 years. We have absolute theft patterns that have occurred over that time. But the frequency, and not only the frequency, but calculation, organization, and aggression of the retail theft occurring is like nothing I've experienced. One example of that I'd like to share is, for lack of a better term, spurts of theft. So we get hit. So for example, Patagonia Burlington, this is maybe a month ago, and theft is, throughout the year, but multiple individuals, couples, and groups within the same day and days, in a very short period of time, who are extremely knowledgeable about, of course, dollar values. Sometimes their math's a little off and they go over unintentionally, over the $900 threshold, and well aware of what we can't do. I had one individual I caught with over $1,000 yell, "You can't touch me." He actually threw the garments. We've seen this tactic as well. You throw the product everywhere because it's kind of confusing, and the staff will go for one of the fallen products and they'll escape. Put his arms up, walked right at me and said, "You can't touch me, you can't touch me, you can't touch me." We saw that spurt at Patagonia Burlington halt right as our staff had made internal adjustments, so on and so forth. And then 24 hours went by, and now Ski Rack currently, right now, is getting hammered, in which case we are, again, having individuals who have absolutely cased the place, understanding where product is, that sprint in, grab as much as they can off a specific rack, and sprint out to an idling car, something we've also never seen. So the coordination, understanding that to pull off an effective theft, you need planning, you need communication, you need a aftermarket destination, and you need a getaway vehicle, is evidence to me that the level of coordination and intelligent execution is something, again, we've never seen. We've had a female staff get just absolutely thrown out of the way by a thief who got away. And, again, it's a level of calculation we haven't seen. It's been a catalyst for, thank you, Mark and Sam, your leadership within the community is noted, appreciated. Speaking for myself and the Ski Rack group, would love to share notes, Mark, at another time, in all our free time, and has really been a catalyst for businesses to look out for each other and communicate in a totally, completely appropriate way what's going on these calls and at these meetings that Kelly was talking about. There is a need for specific brand names in our experience, because those brand names demand such a high price in the resale. And again, I've kind of spoke to it, but without that aftermarket, whatever it might be, and I don't act like I know, it could be resale online, it could be resale in person, it could be exchanged for narcotics. Without that, there is not the demand, and there's not the supply, which is happening daily right now. We were at a meeting this morning. We've actually dismantled our main street entrances for customers and created exit onlys. And we are absolutely willing to sacrifice sales for staff safety. That is the priority. However, is that a characteristic of a vibrant community? In which case we Siegrist, around 20,000 square foot building, we have one entrance right now and multiple exits, but we are doing everything we can to keep our staff out of harm's way. But with everything they're having to deal with, and each of you, or I'm sure everyone on this call, has personally or directly or indirectly dealt with COVID, with inflation, with the impact that has on the economy, housing costs. Our staff are under immense pressure. And New York Times on the 9th said 4.5 million people voluntarily left their jobs in November. It's hard enough without this constant aggression that's calculated and, again, organized, that continues to occur. So, as a locally owned retailer, we're looking to deal with that and really hope to implore this committee to consider aggregate for not just groups, but individuals, because often these individuals are working with people either parked in the car or who had previously cased the place. And we are seeing different individuals target the same racks. So there's immense communication. Again, the brazen manner in which this is all occurring is indicative that they are well aware there's no repercussions. There are no deterrents right now. We do pull our video footage. We do file police reports. And, the likelihood of someone getting caught is low, even if we do catch them in the act. And prosecution's another story. We do recognize repeat offenders, and, our business neighbors are also messaging us that they're getting hit. So people are going up and down the marketplace in a single day, hitting as many as they can, understanding that there's little to no ramifications for the actions. So we certainly need your help, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Certainly depressing information. I'm assuming that the price of your goods goes up because of the loss. Somebody's got to make it up. But then there's a limit to how much you can charge. So how do you make up for your losses? Any one of you? Yeah, Mark?
What you just said is not the case. What we sell, what Siegrist sells, what most of the retailers in Burlington sell, especially in our space, has an advertised price. People know what it costs. If a jacket costs $199, you can't sell it for $209. You can't sell it for $200. Someone's going to buy it online for $199 or come in and ask us to sell it to them for $199. So the answer is no. The only way that we can cover this loss is by selling more product, which means we have to buy more product, which means we're using resources that could go towards other aspects of the local economy, whether that's hiring new people, expanding wages of those that we have working for us already, or simply investing in new opportunities that, again, bring more money into the economy and into the local tax base.
Thank you. Kelly, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that this really has fallen, mainly on the local or national retailer as become sort of a business reality to, figure in of, if you will, the cost of doing business in Vermont. And I think that's why we see in some cases national entities having some reluctance to place their businesses in the area. I think the important thing, and I think Erin touched on this, is And Mark said it too, for many of our businesses, we've seen this trend increase and it's unsustainable. So we have heard from businesses that said, if I have another year or two like this, I'm going to have to close my doors. So I think that's, the long-term reality. And, we heard from these folks today because they are larger businesses and, have some ability to take a look at the data. We have a lot of small businesses, clothing boutiques, jewelry stores, people that sell trinkets, socks, that, know they're getting stolen from and have no idea even what the number looks like until maybe they do their inventory and then they realize that, a fair amount of product is missing. So, I want to speak of the voice of those small retailers as well. We see people go into clothing stores and just steal an entire pile of jeans, for example. They just grab the entire pile and run out. That's part of the evidence I think is important to consider when is it organized? And, it seems very evident. I understand as well that when we lost the Macy's store in Burlington, among the considerations was the large amount of retail theft that store was experiencing.
We need to end to this morning right at noon time because many of us have other meetings to rush to. For some reason, now that we're on Zoom, people think they can schedule meetings right at 12 and that one's going to end automatically at 12 and the next one starts at 12. I thank you very much for your testimony. Next week, we will take this bill up again, try to get some answers about what folks can do and if there's amendments to the bill that we could make. Obviously, you can't violate some of these civil rights, but if there's amendments that, I'd like to better understand the idea that you can't go get your product back after you've seen it stolen, then you have to let it go down the street with the thief. So we will, I think it was a good suggestion that we ask Sarah George and somebody else from the state's attorneys to come in and maybe to talk about that issue and have Eric do a little research on it.
Yep.
Really
Okay.
appreciate the time to be heard, Senator Sears and all the members of the committee, and happy to follow up with you to discuss this further. I'll be on the meeting next week if you have State's Attorney Georgia, because I'd be interested as well to hear what she has to say. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm going to ask Aaron to join us too. If Peggy
Yes.
could send both of you the Zoom link and anybody else that's on this today who wants the Zoom link, welcome.